Hello, saludos. My name is Cid Wilson, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility. And welcome to the Hispanic Leadership Summit 2020, taking place virtually, hosted by We Are All Human Foundation. A big shout out to my dear friend, Claudia Romo Edelman, for her leadership in putting together this forum for the third year that we're coming together. This topic is one that is very timely for what is happening this year. Business Avengers jumping into action. Let me first start by saying why this is such an important session. 2020 is by far the most difficult year that many of us have ever experienced in our lives. Not just because of what's been happening with the COVID-19 pandemic, but for what I also call this woke moment when it comes to social justice in America. What took place last spring with the deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, what happened in Central Park with Christian Cooper, what also happened with an Afro-Latino journalist named Omar Jimenez at CNN, who was arrested on camera. We are seeing a moment where we can no longer assume that leadership that will provide solutions on racial and social justice will come from government. This is why corporate America needs to step up, and many have stepped up. This is no longer a period where we can assume that when employees leave the confines of their offices or their place of work, that that things just go back to normal. I can tell you, speaking from personal experience, I've been president and CEO for the last 6 years. I came from Wall Street, and it was a very common experience for me of going into the workplace, being recognized for my professional work that I do, as well as who I am as a proud Dominican American Afro Latino. But the moment that you leave the office, or the moment that that I were to dress casually or go into a park, I'm Black in America. And we know that there are many issues taking place for not only Afro Latinos but all people of color. You know what happened last year when we had the tragic shooting in El Paso, Texas, of Walmart, specifically targeting Mexican Americans, is yet a reminder of the fact that corporations need to factor in the issues of social justice as part of their overall corporate responsibility. And that's why it's so important that we have initiatives such as our ASET Corporate Inclusion Index that we do, where we take a survey of companies and what are they doing in areas of employment, procurement, philanthropy, and governance. It's why it's important that we have great collaborations, including We Are All Human. And it's why we have great corporate partners that are committed to the importance of not only diversity and inclusion, but also social justice for all Americans. And so this is an important topic that we're going to be discussing today. And we're going to be I'm very excited the fact that we have three individuals that I know well, who have been examples and work for companies that are really at the forefront of addressing the issues of social justice, and who have reiterated their commitment to the importance of being part of this movement to have a more equitable America, a more inclusive America, an America where we can celebrate our diversities and also recognize that we are all human, that we are individuals who should be recognized for who we are as Americans, as Latinos, as people of color, as individuals that are making a difference. And so that's why in this year where we've had these unfortunate situations that have tested the core foundation of who we are as Americans and as Latinos, that this is such an important topic. And so I'm really excited to introduce some of our business Avengers who I know have been working very tirelessly, not only on behalf of their companies, but also representing their companies who have been very proactive on this topic. We have Alberto Garofalo. He is a chief CRA officer and community banking and development executive at Bank of America. We have Merary Simeon, who is the vice president for diversity and engagement for PepsiCo North America, and Hector Mujica, who is the economic opportunity lead for the Americas for Google.org. So let's get started. And first of all, saludo mi gente.
Saludos.
All right.
Hola.
Great, thank you. So let's jump in on this important topic. Um, let's start with my first question, and I'll ask all of you to do it, and maybe Alberto, I'll ask you to kick it off. Is what commitments has Bank of America made or efforts that you've made into putting in place to advance Hispanic community either internally or externally? And I'll ask everyone from, of course, Alberto at Bank of America, and then Merary at PepsiCo, and then Hector at Google.org.
Well, first of all, thank you, Cid. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and really, really excited to be part of such an important event. Second of all, by the way, I absolutely love the title that has now been bestowed on all of us, Business Avengers. I can tell you that my daughters now think I'm an absolute hero. So I'm going to have to use that title on a go-forward basis. So thank you. That's definitely sticky. So look, I appreciate the question, and I'll break it up into three parts because I think it's important to talk about certainly internally what we've done that for us really starts with our teammates, but then externally, what we've done for our clients and also what we've done for our communities that I think really speak to the burning platform that you referenced at the beginning in your opening comments and what we're all facing, frankly, right now that has been exacerbated this year across America. Look, we have a long history and commitment in investing in Hispanic and Latino communities by being a great place to work for our employees, supporting our clients, and being proactive in our neighborhoods that we all live, work, and play. And we are proud to be the bank of choice for Hispanic Latino clients and businesses. 1 out of every 3 checking accounts that we open is Hispanic and Latino clients. We serve over 9.5 million Hispanic Latinos individuals and over 1 million business owners. So to your question specifically, look, we believe that achieving responsible growth the right way, it really does start with our teammates and particularly commitments to our teammates. It makes us stronger. Look, we value the value we deliver as a company is only strengthened when we bring all of these broad perspectives together to meet the needs of our diverse stakeholders, right? So internally, first of all, our board of directors is 47% diverse and includes 1 Hispanic Latino director, Cid, which I know you know. Our U.S. workforce is more than 18% Hispanic, really exceeding the industry benchmarks. And look, our very own CEO chairs our Global Diversity and Inclusion Council. So it's important to understand that this commitment really starts from the top, led by our CEO. The other thing that I wanted to mention at Bank of America, we have what's called the Hispanic Latino Executive Council. It's really comprised of more than 200 senior-based Hispanic Latino leaders across the U.S., which frankly continue to grow as you think about over the years. And what this organization does, or what this council does, is it helps influences strategies that grow talent representation and deepen relationships with Hispanic and Latino clients. We also have employee networks, which I think you're familiar with, one of which is our award-winning Hispanic Latino Organization for Leadership and Advancement, over 16,000 members strong. And this organization has over 38 chapters across the country and are actively engaged in mentoring, sponsoring, you name it, commitments to our teammates, both internally and externally. So it starts obviously with the commitment to our teammates. And for us, really, it starts from the top. Now, externally, for our clients, I'll start with our clients. Obviously, language capability is really important. BAC.com in Spanish and en Español, mobile banking, direct mail, email statements, ATMs, obviously our financial centers, radio spots, en Español and Inglés, marketing materials, part of that commitment to be there for our clients. Financial literacy is absolutely important. Our Better Money Habits capabilities is offered both in English and in Spanish to help our clients, especially now in the time of need. We've got over 2,000 financial centers that are in areas where we know we've got high concentrations of Hispanic and Latino clients that have language capabilities, over 13,000 speaking associates that are there to answer the need for our clients. And our award-winning mobile app, also en Español, with over 2 million active users, is really, again, part of that commitment that we continue to provide for our clients. And look, I think for our small businesses, which is really, we know how important that is. We just released our 4th annual survey of Hispanic small business owners to better understand some of the unique differences and experiences that our Hispanic entrepreneurs are experiencing. And you know that so well with what you do, Cid, every day, right? And then look, lastly, externally for our communities, and this is really important. So far, we've given over 23 million in philanthropy grants to organizations that are specifically focused on serving Hispanic and Latino communities. By the way, it includes 100 million in COVID relief. That's encompass funding to nonprofits serving primarily Hispanic and Latino communities. And we're also supporting progress for the Hispanic Latino community, obviously with partnerships with organizations like Unidos, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Latitude. I said, of course, we are all human. Just to give you some of the examples, that partnership and collaborating and magnifying is important to create a better impact. And you've probably heard our $1 billion commitment to advance racial equality and economic opportunity. We recently announced as part of that $25 million commitment to enhance the upskilling and reskilling for Black and Hispanic Latino individuals through partnerships with over 21 higher education institutions. I won't go through them, but it was recently announced. And also as part of that commitment, we have completed several equity investments in minority deposit institutions and community development financial institutions, CDFI banks. And these investments are going to help facilitate, frankly, the across multiple states and the communities, and how these institutions better serve our communities by lending, focusing on housing, neighborhood revitalization, and of course, other banking services. So to summarize, Cid, obviously it starts with our teammates, it starts from the top, but certainly transcends to commitments that we've made for our clients and certainly for our communities.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And you hit on some key things, particularly the fact that this starts on top. And we'll be talking more about that. I do commend Brian Moynihan, the chairman and CEO for Bank of America, for and everyone there, and of course Monica Lozano, your B of A board director, a dear friend of mine, who's really been a great champion in our community. Merary, so PepsiCo has certainly done a lot this year, and this has been quite a transformational year for PepsiCo. Not only in terms of really being at the forefront, and certainly PepsiCo is no stranger to being involved in issues of social justice. We know the history of PepsiCo being one of the most earliest companies in the country to hire Black executives at a time when there was still Jim Crow. But talk about what you and what PepsiCo have been doing in this issue, and we're so proud to have a Latina Avenger on this panel. So.
Thank you, Cid, for the opportunity. And Alberto, Hector, un placer estar con ustedes aquí hoy también. PepsiCo, this is one of the reasons why I'm so proud to work for this company. Early this year, we announced a set of initiatives aimed at addressing the Black community, as you, I'm sure, heard. But we didn't stop there. Right away, we began to work on and using the same methodology on what we needed to do for the Hispanic community, because we knew that our Hispanic community was hurting as well. And one of the things that we did is late in September, we announced an investment of more than $170 million dollars in commitments over the next 5 years in addressing what we call diversity, right? What we call communities, our businesses. And this is critical for us because this was not just a new investment. This is on top of the 2020 spend of $275 million with Hispanic suppliers. So to your point, this has been part of PepsiCo's DNA. We've implemented a multi-part strategy this year to support Hispanic talent. So similar to what Bank of America has done, we're looking internally and externally. What are the needs? We're attracting, we're retaining, we're developing, we're ensuring that we're getting the right promotions in place and making sure that we have an inclusive organization where every Latino can strive. Now, these initiatives are preparing also the community for future work. So we're looking at Hispanic-owned businesses, and we're taking a look at how we can help them accelerate their businesses in their communities. Because when you invest in the communities, when you invest in a Hispanic business, it is the fastest way to get money in their hands and to really help not just that business, but that whole family strive. And the final thing, I'm not sure if you were aware, but in 2018, we created the Hispanic Business Unit in the beverage side. In 2020, we launched earlier this year a Hispanic Business Unit that is concentrated, extremely dedicated to the Hispanic businesses and understanding the needs of our communities. So I could talk about this forever, but that's just a high level of some of the things that we're doing at PepsiCo and the commitments that we made to our community, as well as internally to our people in PepsiCo.
Great, thank you so much, Merary, and of course, thank you for your leadership at PepsiCo. Hector, how are you, Hector? ¿Cómo está? Hector, you're in the philanthropic arm of Google, Google.org, and you're in a very unique role in that this is something that Google has been doing for many, many years, and particularly doing some philanthropic support to organizations that are very specifically working on civil rights and voting rights, and supporting organizations like Latino Justice Curl Deaf, that is one of our celebrated Latino civil rights organizations. Can you talk about what Google.org is doing in this woke moment as it relates to our Latino community?
Absolutely, Cid. It's good to be with you. Thank you for having me. And Merary, Alberto, it's good to meet both of you. And thank you guys for the rich conversation. I think these past few months, Cid, like we've been talking about, really underline tears in society that have long gone ignored in our country. And like you mentioned, Google.org, Google's philanthropy, and Google as a whole, as an entity, has had a long-standing commitment to social justice and racial justice. Given the occurrences of the past few months with COVID and the racial awakening that our country is undergoing, the political polarization and tensions that the country is also undergoing, Google took a stance, like many of our peer companies like PepsiCo and Bank of America. We took a stance and made a commitment to racial justice around 5 specific pillars. The first pillar was working to improve representation, minority representation, Black representation, Latino representation at senior levels, and committing to a goal to improve leadership representation of underrepresented groups by 30% by the year 2025. So we know that's going to be the biggest driver. The way that we ultimately hold companies accountable is going to be by making sure that these companies reflect and look more like the communities that we aim to serve. Secondly, the company also made a commitment to do more to address representation challenges, focusing on hiring, retention, and promotion at all levels. This is ultimately being held to account by a series of executives internally. Similarly to Bank of America, we also have a Latino Leadership Council, which is a council of senior executives at the company that are of Latino descent and heritage and are committed to helping drive forward the Latino agenda within the company. Third, we're working to create a stronger sense of inclusion and belonging for Googlers in general. And that really starts with our employees, and that really starts with our employee resource groups. Like Cid, like you know, I was one of the initial co-founders of HOLA, which is Google's Latino employee resource group, which has now grown from an entity that was Mountain View based in our headquarters to now being not only across the United States, but also across many, many countries. We have chapters in Australia and England and across the world. And this organization that's now multiple thousand of Googlers strong has really helped move and shift and orient the direction in which Google heads as a company that has a stronger inclination towards diversity and inclusion. The fourth the fourth commitment that Sundar, our CEO, outlined was establishing a range of anti-racism education programs that are global in view and will be able to scale to all of our Google workforce, which is really, really important to continue to bust some of the unconscious bias and racism that can and may exist at the employee level. And fifth, we're focusing on creating better support for mental and physical health and well-being of employees that are impacted by racial injustice. So really trying to create and foster a stronger, better environment. This, of course, builds on Google.org's historic commitments to much of the work that we've done for minority communities and for the Latino community historically. Cid, like you previewed, like you mentioned, we were one of the pioneers, one of the corporate funder pioneers into the criminal justice space, dedicating over $12 million towards racial and criminal justice reform early on. This is pre-George Floyd, pre-2020. This was really something that we've been doing over the past several years, including the support of organizations like Latino Justice. We've also been investing historically on the upward mobility of the Latino community for years, including preparing them at an early age with the right level of exposure to STEM and computer science, such as the work that we funded with organizations like Unidos and the YWCA, also serving Latinas, as well as ensuring that once Latinos have entered the workforce, they have an opportunity and pathways to upskill, reskill, and participate in the digital economy, such as the work that we're doing with the Hispanic Federation and building out a digital career center of excellence for Latinos. And then, of course, COVID happens, 2020 as a year happens, and we continue to see many of the underlying issues and tensions that exist towards our community, and particularly some of the issues with small business support, right? We see that reports from the National Bureau of Economic Research indicating that 32% of Latino-owned businesses have been forced to close in recent months because of the pandemic. And even a greater number of Latino businesses are at risk of closure over the next several months. And like Merary mentioned, when you invest in a Latino small business, you invest in an entire family, you invest in an entire community, and Latino-owned small businesses and small businesses as a whole are part of the backbone of the economy of our country, which is why Google committed over $180 million to support minority and women-led small businesses across the country this year in response to the economic downturn and what was happening with COVID. Specifically, and building on that, we also dedicated a specific amount of money to the Hispanics and Philanthropy's Power Up Fund to directly support hundreds of Latino-owned small businesses across some of the states that have the highest percentage of Latinos and Latino-owned small businesses, with not only access to capital, but also access to the training they need to be successful and be able to overcome the economic downturn and continue to grow. So that's really just a small portion of our commitment to diversity at Google.
Hector, thank you, Hector, and thank you, Google.org, for your commitment. I'm so excited. I just tried to jump in before I unmute. But with the few minutes that we have left, I want to ask all of you this question, because it's clear that all of you as Latino, Latina business Avengers, business and corporate Avengers at your companies who are not only raising your voices on the importance that corporate America needs to be active and involved and a stakeholder when it comes to racial and social justice. We know that here at the We All Human Foundation and Hispanic Leadership Summit, there are thousands of attendees representing companies who may be early in their journey. And the fact that the three of you and your companies are no strangers to this, what's your, share with you, number one, with only a few brief remarks, why this is so important And two, if you are early in your journey to engage with our Latino community on the importance of social justice and hopefully identifying Latino business and corporate Avengers at your companies, not yours, but at the companies of those that are in these here present at the companies that are early, what can they do? And I know that's a long question with only a few minutes, but let's start with you, Merary, and then we can go to Alberto. Well, go to Hector and then Alberto.
Thank you. Yes. More than ever, this is important, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because people are really looking to see what companies are standing behind and what companies are doing for their communities. Me as a Latina, I can tell you, I'm saying, what is PepsiCo doing, not just for me, not just for our employees, but for my community? So to me, that's really important. What can you do if you haven't started? It starts internally. It starts with showing your people what are you doing for them and being transparent. For us, this meant our leadership team, starting with the CEO, taking a look and talking to our Adelante group, our employee resource group, who then informed us on how we should go and act in their communities. We have the people internally, talk to them. We have experts, Latinos already in the business, talk to them, leverage their minds, their expertise to tell us what's going on in the communities. You can also do this. We engage advisors in our community and community leaders like Cid to talk about, hey, what is the community needing? And what we use that information to inform our action plans. And that's why it's a 5-year journey. So if you haven't started, start with talking to the people that you have, start with engaging in the community and understanding what those true needs are so that you too can make an impact, because we have great companies on here, but we can't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. We need your help and we need each individual. And sometimes for you as an individual, that may be speaking up. For others, it may be investing, but definitely take action and do something.
Thank you so much, Hector. What's your thoughts on why is this so important? If you're a company or someone that is early or new in this journey to be a stakeholder in this social justice movement.
I think at Google, we aim to create a more inclusive company because we want to be reflective and representative of our country and our users. And at the end of the day, it's not just the right thing to do, but it is also right for business. I think it's actually business critical that we build a company that is not just building products for the Latino community, but it's actually building products by the Latino community. And that's going to be the best way that we're going to be able to build products and programs and initiatives that are competitive and relevant and adequate for the communities that we aim to serve, for communities that have increasing influence, increasing buying power. And as a company, you really have to be responsive to that. So I think it's not only like the ethical and then the correct thing to do by societal standards, but also a business critical decision for companies to take this sort of action. And I also agree in that it is incredibly important to give employees a voice, give employees a platform. They're going to be the first ones to orient the company in the direction that it needs to be going and hold the company accountable. And as an additional step of accountability, I think transparency is incredibly important. Google was one of the first Fortune 500 companies to publicize our diversity data, at least in the tech sector. And I think a lot of companies were initially hesitant because the data is just not great in tech, and including at Google, the data we knew was going to be a long road to reach the place where we wanted to be at in terms of inclusion and diversity at Google. But we also knew that the best accountability tool was going to be transparency, was going to be going out with a goal and then being held accountable by the people, by the community, by society to those standards. And we're imperfect. We still have a long way to go, but that transparency has also enabled us to create clear KPIs around diversity and inclusion, clear equity commitments, and continue to push the company to strive for more. And that's also my encouragement for other companies that are not quite there yet, that are beginning to figure out what their place is in diversity and inclusion. Seek transparency, lean into your employees, and the rest will follow.
Thank you so much, Hector. I appreciate that. And Alberto, because this will be you'll probably have the final word as we wrap up this quick 30-minute session. But but Bank of America is in a unique situation because you have local branches throughout the country, and so it's not just what you're doing at the corporate level, but what you're doing in the local communities where Bank of America has a presence. So why is the importance of being involved in this woke movement of social justice is so important for Bank of America, not only at the national level, but even in your local branches?
Okay, awesome, great. Look, first of all, I could not agree more with the comments Merary and Hector made. I think absolutely spot on. Our workforce must represent the communities we serve, and we believe that achieving strong operational results is not only the right thing to do to represent the communities, but it's also a competitive advantage. And frankly, to your point, I don't think there's ever been a time in history where across it has been magnified, whether it's the humanitarian crisis and the adverse effect that has had on this community, as well as the social injustice that continues to have on this community. It has never been more critical and more important. And look, I said this earlier, we have a long history of aligning and supporting our Hispanic and Latino communities and clients and small businesses. But I think it's important that now more than ever, that we rise to the occasion and we magnify and collaborate across the board to really take it to a whole nother level. And we believe that we're doing that. And I think to your point, the advice that I would have, I think to help drive that culture of inclusion, I would encourage to develop employee access to a whole range of all the programs and resources focused on building, understanding, and driving workplace progress in the workplace. We've done that this year. We've had over 320 conversations with external partners and internal partners on why this is important to our teammates and why this is important to our clients. And those voices are being heard, and it becomes a catalyst, frankly, of action and perspectives and point of view that I think are so important. And I would encourage you to bring in external partners, right? We are human. I said other organizations we certainly have partnered with. As an example, the Secretary of the Smithsonian Institute, Lonnie Bunch, which Unidos, with Janet Murguia, the National Urban League President and CEO, Mark Morial, and have brought those leaders in to continue this dialogue of racial equality and economic opportunity. That's an important component to hear that voice and ultimately accelerate it. And then I think the last point, transparency is really important and really critical. This is the second year that we produce something that we call the Human Capital Report, and I encourage you to take a look at it. And we introduced a Human Capital Report to provide greater clarity and transparency in how we make our company a great place to work and support our teammates and their families. And obviously, the report helps us. It holds us accountable, but it also helps shareholders and other stakeholders better understand our employee practices. And it also serves as a baseline for which we can show progress and hold each other accountable to continue to make it happen in supporting our teammates, which, remember, it starts with our teammates, but then supporting our clients and ultimately our communities every day.
Well, thank you so much, Alberto. And unfortunately, I know we're out of time, but hopefully, for everyone that's watching this session, that hopefully this session inspires you to be a Latino business adventurer at your company, because we know that together we can make a lasting change and make a difference, not only for Latinos, but for all people of color and for our nation as a whole. And that includes, partnering with many of our non-for-profit partners that are in the trenches, working hard to make sure that we are advocating, making sure that you're supporting your employee resource groups so that they can be activated to be a voice inside your companies. And most importantly, to really look at the culture of inclusion, because when we feel included, we feel like we belong. And when we feel like we belong, we are activated to make sure that we are bringing others to feel that sense of belonging. And together we can make that difference. So I want to give a big thank you to Alberto Garofalo from Bank of America, Merary Simeon from PepsiCo, and Hector Mujica from Google.org. And a big thank you to the We Are All Human Foundation. A big thank you, shout out to Claudia Romo Edelman. Thank you for your leadership, for putting together the Hispanic Leadership Summit for the third consecutive year. Y saludo mi gente, and si se puede, mi gente. Thank you so much and have a great conference.
That was energizing. I love being able to be strategic for all of us, to know what we're going after and to know who do we count on, what companies are with us, how do we actually leverage and galvanize even more companies to be with us and investing in our future. Well done. Now, the next segment, we're going to go deeper into those areas that are systemic barriers for our progress. We're going to take a deep look, having the best minds and experts on each of those areas, discussing data, approaches, best practices, and ways to measure. After each of those, education, gender, health, and decent work, we're going to vote. And after all of the sessions, we're going to vote again and prioritize to actually get to know what are the things that we can fight for together and have a plan.